Hello again, everyone. This is Mark Corcoran, one of the authors of Metal Uniform Embellishments of the Australian Army, post-1953, that is the Queen Elizabeth II series. Today we're going to briefly discuss the table of contents which is used in Volume 1 and Volume 2 of that work, both the electronic versions and the hard copy versions of that work. We're going to have a look at a brief survey of a spreadsheet that we created when we designed the book, which sets out all of the contents of both volumes, disaggregated by corps and schools and philanthropic organisations in the first volume, and regiments and units in the second volume, together with the benefits of a spreadsheet which allows you to track a number of other attributes associated with each of the items catalogued in these works, specifically the eras of manufacture for each of them, together with some assessment of how commonly they can be found, which we'll discuss separately later, and also as a method of tracking the contents of your own collection or swap stock or store stock, whatever it might be, and in addition looking at how that table of contents can be used to cross-reference between the numbering system used in these works and those of the works that went before it, in particular those of Jeff Cossum's work on Australian military insignia, and before him works created by Mr. Alfred Fesberg, in particular his work on the 1966 Order of Battle and the insignia of units on the Order of Battle at that time, and of course one mustn't forget the works created by Mr. Rick Griebert either. Having said that, without further ado, I think the best way forward now is to have a quick look at the spreadsheet that we created and talk you through what it might be able to do for you. Thank you. Okay, here we are at a quick look at the opening part of the spreadsheet we've created for users of both volumes. You will find that on the left hand side in column A is a list of each of the items catalogued in both works, and in column K you can see the number that we assigned to each of them. If you scroll down that numeric list, as I'm doing at present, ultimately you'll get to the end of volume, or the items numbered in volume 1. Here we are arriving at that point now, where we get to the end of numbered items. We get to some miscellaneous establishment material, and we get to the part of the work that deals with rogues, repros, and regimental shop items, the good, the bad, and the ugly, as the case might be. You will then find that the table of contents for volume 2 becomes readily available for your inspection, and again you will find that the items are listed as you would expect in the left hand column in column A. The numbering system for volume 2 commences with item 200, and if you scroll fairly quickly towards the end of that, you'll find that the numbering system for volume 2 finishes off at item 359 at the moment. You'll see here that the inclusion right after the AATTV and the Vietnam Training Team's night operation brevet at 357, you'll find two new entries, item 358 and 359, which are the Special Operations Engineer Regiment, SOER, and the Special Operations Logistics Squadron, SOLS, respectively. We have then reserved numbers 360 to 399 to deal with other similar new deployable units as the Army proceeds into its future. We then anticipate completing a similar rogues gallery, rogues, repros and regimental shop items, which will be slaved off the numbering system that works above, just as it did in volume 1. So that's an outline of the numbering system used in both volumes. If we scroll back to the beginning of the table of contents in volume 1, let's introduce you to some of the stuff that might be perhaps a little bit new or unexpected. Firstly, in this column here, you will find that we have numbered items which were produced in brass and white metal and occasionally in silver in the 1953 to 1965 period, which we'll discuss later. In the next column we have the anodized period, which began, as Alfred Fesberg's work establishes, with the Education Corps receiving new insignia in super pure anodized aluminium in 1964. So the anodized period is contained in this column, or works that were produced in that super pure aluminium in anodized format from 1964 onwards up until 1997 are represented in this column. Then we go to the next column, which is for those items which were produced post 97 with a different metal, base metal, not super pure aluminium, and they have been, of course, plated in the traditional sense. So we've tried to pick a colour which is reasonably representative of each period of manufacture, and we've put those period columns before we get into the column which deals with the numbering system itself. Now, this spreadsheet then goes on, obviously, to accommodate page numbering for the volumes. If that's of any interest, it's probably not overly important, which is why we've blanked it out. The next two columns, or perhaps the next three columns if you like, are perhaps more important. Again, in a separate video I will explain the Likert scale that we have used to describe the relative scarcity of items. We've used a 5-point Likert scale going from 1 star, which is pretty much available at any given time, to 5 star, where items are rarely seen within any 5-year period, and quite possibly in greater periods than that as well. So there it is at a glance. That's the spreadsheet. That's the way it's set out. There's a couple of other issues which we'd like to introduce you to as you attempt to use the spreadsheet that we will eventually post on our web blog, and that is this coloration in these 3 columns and what you can do with them. Those of you who have any legal background will understand that the way this spreadsheet has been set up is quite like a legislation translation table. Whenever a new act is created, built upon acts that went before, quite often lawyers will plot the sections of well-known pre-existing legislation and plot them against the sections of a new and later and more unknown piece of legislation, so they can work from the known to the new equivalents, and we've done the same thing here for you. What you can do with this table, apart from cataloguing your own collection and swap stock and so on and so forth by adding columns and putting in provisions to count the particular items that you have in your collection, and that's probably the main use of this work. But for those of you with a broader research bent, the idea of this spreadsheet is to allow you to track the numbering system that we've arbitrarily chosen to use in cataloguing works in the post-53 era with the numbering system used by other authors in the past. Now, here we have illustrated the numbering system used by Mr. Jeff Cossum. You can equally add references from Alfred Fesberg's work. You could use numbering systems from a number of different sources, including the Army's NSN system as well, each of which we have done from time to time for various purposes, but this is a very simple version of the document, one that's pre-built for you to add columns to so that you can track what's going on in your collection, and you can put in these columns whatever cross-reference material you find useful for your own purposes. We hope you find this spreadsheet reasonably useful. We hope later on, when we explain the supply scale, the Likert scale that we've used, that will be of use to you as well. And of course, we welcome your feedback when you start using this, so that you can tell us what you think of it and what you thought was a good way to change it for your own use, because we would like to learn from you as well. Enjoy. Thank you.